everyone. Welcome to Berlinale Talents. Welcome to our very first public session here at Hau 3. Great that you all made it through the rain. We are very happy as Talents is about many filmmakers, 255 filmmakers from all around the world, from different fields of work. We are very happy to open the Hau 3 with a very specific field of work and the world of propmaking. I'm happy to introduce you to our wonderful moderator, Andrew Amondson, who's introducing our guest and his world, the world of propmaking. So, enjoy the talk.
Great. Yeah, great that you're here. I couldn't be more happy to be here because I get to introduce you to somebody who's not only at the top of their field in what they do, but also so generous in sharing what he knows from the wealth of his experience, and I think we're very lucky for that today. In last year's session, we focused on your model building, and so for this session, we had a smaller-than-life look into the model-making process, and specifically into two films from Wes Anderson's, was Grand Budapest Hotel and The Isle of Dogs. Yeah. And he's continued his collaboration with Wes on the forthcoming film, The French Dispatch. So today we're going to take a focus on props and go into Simon's world of props. And if I were to go through the film credits and the series credits, it would be too much. But you've worked with some very iconic directors, including Steven Spielberg, Quentin Tarantino, Tom Tickford, the Wachowskis. It's just great that you're here today because he's in the middle of production, and we all know how that is. And it's a film that we can't talk about. So don't even try. I've tried. So Simone Weisse. Let's welcome Simone Weisse. Thank you.
So thank you for having me again. It was a pleasure last year to speak about those miniature world from Wes Anderson. And I'm showing prop making this year because that's the thing I'm working the most on. Because miniature sets, it's an old-fashioned thing, and it's coming back a bit with Wes Anderson and some other people and commercials. But what I do for a living is prop making, and a lot of people even don't know about it because it's sometimes hard to understand, to explain. When you see a prop on the screen, sometimes it's things you find in the museum or ready-made already, but sometimes they are so special that you have to build them alone or with other people. So what I show is just a small selection of stuff I have been doing since 20, 25, 30 years.
Before you launch into it, there we go. Yeah. Before you launch into that, just so you know, the presentation that Simone's prepared for us will take a bit of time, but we'll be sure to make sure we stop for questions at the end. And even for those who don't want to raise up their hand and say it in this forum, we'll cut it out a little bit early so you can come down and meet Simone and ask those questions personally. So before you begin with your presentation, just wanted to ask you about your start in prop making. What was the film, and what was it about this work that made you know that you could continue in this?
I must say, my father was a still photographer for films, so I was very... I was studying in France. I've grown up in France, and I studied in the art school of Montpellier, but I was a very lazy student, so my father took me to some of his productions as an intern, a trainee, and there was one really good occasion 30 years ago with Terry Gilliam, The Adventures of Barry Munchausen, where they've put me in the English special effects crew, where I started to learn everything about prop making, model making. And they said, oh, you should carry on. And for me, it was really learning by doing, because I never thought before that I'm going to work in this field. But it's over the years, now I have no choice.
Oh, great. Well, take us through these years here.
Yeah, okay. So, first thing. That's a film by Guillermo del Toro. It was his first film about Hellboy, that comic. And that was strange, because I used to live in France, still at that time. And a company... Technique, yeah. A company called DDT, Efectos Especiales in Barcelona, where they are good friends. And they told me, okay, they're going to do all the makeup and masks for the film, but they have a special costume. Costume was working on it, but it was so detailed that they asked me to do that. And they're quite famous now, because they have been doing all these other films with Guillermo del Toro, and like Pan's Labyrinth, where they had an Oscar for the makeup. And okay, so I was working in France, they were working in Barcelona, and I had those drawings. They said, we don't know exactly what we want, but can you do something? And it's always like that. Sometimes you get really precise drawings, but you have to make an interpretation of it. So in the end, they made the mask, I made partly that costume, and we have built this in Barcelona. It was shot in Budapest. And there's some technical issues, sorry about that. There was also another piece which he's taking out of his chest. So at those days, we didn't have those machines like today, like laser cutting machines, and I had to do everything by hand. Cutting out of brass and soldering it, and it's really a handcraft. The idea was that this person, this actor, he had to play the role of Kronen. He's a kind of Nazi, so a bad guy. And he was supposed to have built that vest himself. So, and I did it a bit the same way. I went to a hardware store and to decoration stores and found pieces for shelves, for doors, and just sticked everything together, molded it, and then in the end we have the result of this vest. And just let me show you what it gives in the film.
Oh, it's beautiful work.
But he's a nasty guy. So next film is The Perfume, a story of a murderer by Tom Tykwer. At that time, it was the most expensive German film they've ever made. That's a thing I want to explain. We're doing props, but for small production, it's quite difficult to do them, but because we want to earn some money. So, so if you have a small TV production, they tell me, oh, we want this and that. It's very complicated, but it needs time and materials and labor, and most of the time smaller production just can't afford it. So, yeah.
When do you have to say no? At what point do you have to say no to a production because it isn't enough time? And how did you come to this point where you realized how to protect yourself from taking on something that isn't going to work because there isn't the time or the money for it?
It's by experience, but you know, they ask, however, they insist. Yes, okay, you can't do it. We haven't got the time. We haven't got the money. But can you do it? Or can you simplify it? And then I say, no, if I simplify it, it will not look good. But that happens sometimes. I'm weak. I'm doing stuff, however, and it doesn't look good. But I try to avoid this.
Mm-hmm. Was there ever an example of when you learned this? When you learned this life lesson in simplifying and making something in the end you were not happy with?
I mean, in the Perfume, we did a branch with something was peeling off the branch, and I said, no, it doesn't look good and it will not work, and we did it, however, and that it was shot a whole weekend, and then it wasn't used in the film. But what can you do? So Perfume means perfume bottles, and we had two different types of bottles. The film was shot in the beginning in the Bavaria studios in Munich, then went to Barcelona. But when we were in Munich, there was somebody, a doctor, who was collecting perfume bottles from all over the centuries. And what you see on the left there, these are copies we made. He has rented us for one night a collection of bottles. It was insured, I don't know how much. And we worked the whole night to make silicone molds of these old perfume bottles, and then cast them in plastic and paint them. But they were used during the whole film. A part of those bottles on the right there, the blue ones, we made them especially. There was a drawing made, and with Tom we had long discussions how this has to look, and in the end we ended up with these blue bottles and red bottles, but they are all in plastic. There's no liquid inside, but that's enough for a film. So as we were talking about sustainability in this film, I trained this word the whole week.
It's hard for me too.
You make all these molds in silicone and plastic and liquid resins, and it's very good material, but very poisonous, but they look good. Another example of what we have been doing for that film and other films are that the main actor, he had to wear chains, so we didn't want that he hurts himself, so all those chains were in rubber. And he could really play with it quite well.
I mean, that's one point with props, that when they have to be used by an actor, you know, that's the whole point of the prop. Are you ever finding yourself that it's a struggle between sacrificing what you want for a look of something and then something that has to work for the actor?
Yes, it's it's always how can I reply to this? When you have a production designer, they're all very nice people, but sometimes they concentrate too much on the whole sets, on all the sets which are built for the film or the real locations they are using, and in the end, oh, by the way, we have props. And the thing is, sometimes you have the set in the background, and the main prop, you see it on the full screen, and sometimes it's done in the last minute for the actor, and I'm regretting sometimes that the props are not taken as seriously as they should be taken. I don't know if this replies to you.
It does. I mean, and also for an audience of filmmakers, it's an important thing to have in mind at all times, you know, so that it's not an afterthought.
Yeah, it's important, and I really have to grab everybody to say, okay, we will have. What about the props? And often I can't get an answer because they are so busy with the sets, but. Some of them, they are really concerned about props, but it depends on the production designer and the directors. As you said, somebody like Wes Anderson or the Wachowskis, they are really keen on props, and they prepare it a long time before. But some others, I don't know. But you want to see a film clip from the Perfume? Okay, now something completely different. I made a small choice of props like bombs. Bombs are very important because they're coming back all the time. I have made so many bombs, and the thing is, they're all fake for sure. And I'm lucky because a lot of the bombs I do, they go off. Because you have a lot of times something is blinking, and you have the red wire, the blue wire, and somebody tries to cut which one, we don't know, but it's always the right one. I have a few bombs going off, and so an unknown identity, that's all. This was a bomb inside the hotel of the Adlon Hotel in Berlin. It was a set built in Babelsberg Studios, and it was supposed to be behind a wall, and somebody tries to go there and to avoid in the last minute that bomb goes off. So, you know, I looked a bit on the internet. You can find everything about bombs on the internet. And as long as you build something like that with red and blue and cables and something blinking, it works. It works for the audience. It's really funny. Because the real bombs, they haven't got that light or clocks. So this was the set before it was covered. And even that's interesting on the right side. You will see it in the film clip after. There, we have built even some parts of the set in light material, so when it falls down, it doesn't hurt the actors. But the best is to see that film clip. So actually the explosion of the Adlon Hotel was done digitally. They asked me to do a model first and to explode the model, but then it was a choice between digital or model, and then model making was too expensive, so they went for digital. Another bomb for V for Vendetta. Again, a film from the Wachowskis. It's a thing with V for Vendetta because the director what's his name? Oh, sorry. They had a director, which is normally the first assistant from the director. He used to be said the director of the film, but it was the Wachowskis in the end who shot the film. So it's a political reason. I don't know why. But here's another bomb. But this doesn't go off. So I was a bit unhappy. So that's the main character, and it's a bomb vest which is totally, it doesn't make any sense, but as I said before, it's red, it's a lot of cables, and they are twisted, so it looks dangerous. Okay, that was short.
Now, is that something that you also learned through the process of doing, where you'd made something that was hyper realistic, you know, that you see these images online and then it just doesn't work? Or is it, I mean, where is this mix of something that is what you expect to see and what is, you know, the difference between reality and sort of what you're making for these films?
Sometimes reality can be very boring or can be very interesting. So you have to find a way in between to make it believable. On a film, it's all so quick, so you exaggerate your props to make them look real, not real, believable. And I must say, sometimes I'm working on stuff and I say to myself, it doesn't make any sense, but I know it will work on screen. So, and sometimes not. Sometimes you're doing stuff, you're working on a prop and you say, oh, this will never work, and then in the end you throw it away, but you have lost time and money and everything. So, yeah, do you want another bomb? Actually, I thought, okay, it's Homeland, the fifth, so that's not cinema, it's television, and all these series which are coming. That's very interesting for us because it's a new kind of work, because they have a lot to tell and they need a lot of things, and when they come to Berlin to shoot a season like Homeland, it's interesting for us because it's another work. And on Homeland it has to be a bit more realistic than on fantasy films or science fiction films. So they asked me, can you do a pipe bomb? I didn't know what a pipe bomb is before. Again, you go on the internet, you find everything, how to build it. The recipes for all the stuff inside. But again, here I have taken a pipe from the local hardware store. I bought some batteries and a kitchen watch. And you put all this together with some blinking LEDs, and it looks right in that case.
I just have a real quick question.
Yeah.
Just, you brought this up in this homemade aspect, you know, for Hellboy, and also with this. I'm wondering, when you go to the hardware store and you buy the pipe, is there a little bit of getting in character for you when you read the script to sort of think, how would I make this? Am I in this character?
Yes, it is. But talking about the hardware store, sometimes you're looking for a special pipe, for example, in the hardware store, and then there's somebody selling all this stuff, and then the question is, he's asking, why do you need this? What do you need this for? And I can't explain. I can't. It's for a film, and they say, haha. So I'm going there myself, but you're right. It's a bit, you're going to that hardware store, picking all that stuff, and okay, in the end it makes a bomb. But you want to see another very nasty one from Homeland. It's a very nasty one because in that series there are terrorists and they're using sarin gas in bottles. And again, all this thing with those bottles doesn't make any sense. But we had to have something shiny, and when you open it, it moves. And I did this that's my workshop, and I realized when I've shot that picture that all the neighbors were watching. What is he doing there? And and so I try to avoid this taking pictures in the courtyard because. So it's very nasty. If you are sensible, close your eyes. Another example of a TV series shot in Berlin was that Berlin station. The first season, strange, the first season was shot in Berlin, second season as well. I think the third season was shot in Budapest or Prague for a thing called Berlin Station. It's a bit strange, but it's for money reasons. I wanted to show this because it's quite interesting. They wanted to shoot in a server room, but no computer company or server company would allow a film production to shoot in an actual server room. So all this was built. And it was an idea between the production designers, art directors, and me with how we can do that, because we didn't have a lot of money. It's not cinema, it's television, okay, even if it's for Netflix or HBO, you had to find easy ways to make it believable. So here we are on the, I just built one of those racks with real pieces, and on the right one, it's the real one, and in the middle, it's a fake one. So I just built that rack, then photographed it, then it was printed. All the racks were printed. And I added just some cables and blue lights, and the blue lights were just those blue lights for Christmas trees. And it was hard to find all those lights in February because Christmas was over. But that was a cheap way, and you can change the intensity of the lights. So we have just put thousands of lights behind those racks. Yeah.
So in the last image that we saw, that it wasn't digitally replicated, you actually did these printed out versions of the racks. Wow.
Yeah, because we wanted, when the actors pass by, we wanted the blue light on the faces. And but I think that was really an easy way, and adding those cables from time to time in those racks gives a certain volume in 3D. Let's have a look. Okay, let's go back to film, cinema. Bridge of Spies by Steven Spielberg, which was also shot in Berlin and New York. The production designer on this film is the same production designer from Wes Anderson, Adam Stockhausen. And one day I got this call from him, we need to make a cockpit of a U-2 spy plane. And I said, wow, 20 years ago I said, if one day I work with Steven Spielberg, I'm on the top of my career, and then I just stop everything. But I'm still here. Then a few weeks later, production called me and they said, actually we have found a real U-2 plane. You don't need to do it anymore. And I said, okay, what a shame. And then 3 weeks before shooting, Steven Spielberg came, that plane is nice, but we can take it for the exterior shots, but all the inside is just too small. How an actor can move inside and action, they are so squeezed inside that And how do you want to get a camera in the cockpit? So 3 weeks before shooting, we had to do a proper cockpit. And this was a mix between Studio Babelsberg, because in 3 weeks, building a thing complicated as this was very difficult. So we had Bernhard Henrich, the set decorator, who found us a lot of old instruments from old planes, and the big difficulty was to make the glass over. But in 3 weeks, I wasn't very happy with the result of the glass. But Adam Stockhausen said it's okay because they're going to shoot from inside only, and visual effects will take it over then. So studio has built the whole shape. We've built the cockpit, and then it was on a gimbal in sorry in the Tempelhof airport. Instead, we shot actually at Tempelhof airport.
Oh wow!
Yeah, to make this. And yeah.
Just real quick, working with Adam Stockhausen, and of course, you said he's working with Wes, and that sort of attention to detail that comes from the films that he does. With 3 weeks, where do you say, okay, that's enough detail? This isn't enough. So a perfectionist like that, and I'm guessing for Steven Spielberg as well. Like, this is historically accurate. In that time crunch, what do you do?
Yeah, there was somebody consulting us, a specialist for old planes, and he gave us also some instruments. The thing is, on the big productions like this, you don't have direct contact to the director a bit, but he has so many assistants that you have to go through all this chain of command, and then he comes for the shoot, but all the work before, you never talk to him before. It's just the day, and everything has to be ready. And yeah, and today you still have the choice to say, okay, maybe this is not perfect on this is not perfectly built, but it can be taken over digitally. That's a bit of a chance for us if you have the time and money. Yeah. You want to see what? Okay, I'm going a bit quicker because there's more to show. Cloud Atlas was, I think it's a film which has been a bit underestimated, because I saw it 3 or 4 times now, and when you see it every time, you discover a bit more. And this was shot most of the time in Studio Babelsberg again, with Tom Tykwer and the Wachowski sisters. And we had 2 crews. There was the Wachowski side, having a bit more science fiction, all the things happening in the future, and Tom was more of the past. And I was working with my crew of about 15 people, doing props for weeks and months. But props are sometimes big, and to create this scene, we had to build those act chairs. Then those strange machines on here, food machines. This is an example. You have a drawing over there, and we have to build this after that drawing. I'll show you the clip. So we did a lot in this film, but one of my favorite was this awesome gadget. It was called Awesome Gadget. Nobody knows really what it does, but this is to show that's in the film. We had that drawing on the right. What we do quite often is to make a mock-up in polystyrene or cardboard or whatever, to see if the size works, if it fits with the sets, the actor, and then we build it. Nico's awesome, and he can build quite a lot of gadgets. And it looks like this. So just to show you another example of stuff we do, again a cockpit for this strange plane over there. At some point you see in the picture an actor playing with this. So we build just that section of cockpit and all the rest is taken over digitally. Yeah, actually you don't see anything about inside the cockpit. Okay, and that's different because I was presenting Propmaking, but I wanted to talk about this special job I did for Inglourious Basterds. It's a miniature work, it's a model work, and they have shot this sequence in a cinema which doesn't exist. It was built especially in an old concrete building near Berlin because it has to explode and you can't do this in a real studio. So that's what they have built one-to-one. And they asked me to build a model because Tarantino wanted the screening on the smoke after the explosion, and they tried to do it in real, and it didn't work. And then they tried to make it digitally, and then Tarantino said it looks digital. Then you had the visual effects designer, John Dykstra, which he's very known for Star Wars and other stuff. I went to see him, and he asked me to do a model for this, and I asked him how this model has to look, and he said this model has to look good. And that was it. So no, it meant that he trusted me building that model, and so it was turned upside down, and with dry eyes, special effects had put dry eyes mist on that model, and they had 3 different projectors, beamers from 3 sides to project that image on it. And I was very proud because this is the Marlene Dietrichhalle, the biggest studio in Studio Babelsberg, and there was just that model in the middle of that big. Quite.
It's a nice showcase for your work. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's interesting because it's a mix of real pictures in the studio and model work. Unfortunately, I didn't do the bomb you see in the last. It was one of my colleagues, but he did a good job. Okay, this ends a bit the presentation of my work. But
But I think we're very lucky tonight to see a little extra, right? Special permission given.
Yeah, it's just the new film from Wes Anderson, which is coming out soon. They asked me to not really talk about because it's still secret, but maybe some of you have seen the trailer already. What I can say is that the film has been shot in France, and that we here in Berlin, with my crew of about 20 people, for months we were working on miniature sets. And also some props. We have done some props here and sent them to France. And it's going to be a bit like Grand Budapest Hotel. It's a mix of live action film and with those model inserts. And for those who have not seen the trailer, I will show it. Or do And I want to thank Jeremy Dawson, the producer, who said to me, you can show it, don't tell too much. Okay, we'll have to wait to next summer to
talk about this one.
Yeah.
Well, can we? Yeah, let's jump into some questions here. Yeah. Does anybody have a question for Simone? Because if not, I'll have some. I warn you, I will. Okay, up here, there's Henry's got a. Oh, this is fun too. I think for the recording purposes. Nice catch.
Here? Okay. What happens with all your props afterwards? Can you keep some of them, or do you have to throw them away?
Most of the stuff is kept by production because it's property of the film productions. I try to keep some stuff, but not much because I haven't got the space. You need already space for all your machines and people, but also it's difficult to keep the props because they are, as I said, property of the film production, and sometimes they use it for promotion purposes. I try to save some stuff. Some stuff is in that Babelsberg film tour. They are showing some of the props. I try to save props and miniatures, and that there's a museum in France called Musée des Miniatures et du Cinéma in Lyon, and they have a lot of stuff from us. I try to discuss with the production, can you give that to them and show this to a larger audience. There is also some stuff here in the Film Museum in Potsdamer Platz, like the Perfume Bottles, but not much. Most of the stuff disappears. Or you find it on the internet sometimes. I don't know for what reasons, on eBay for an awful lot of money. I don't know how this works, if the productions are giving this out. But I haven't got a lot at I wanted to bring some, but then I have more miniature stuff than props in my workshop.
Another question we have up here. If you want to try it, go ahead. Watch out.
I have a question about a prop that I didn't see here, but I don't know if it's considered a prop. When you do a short film or a film where you have to have a dead animal, what are the challenges of having to do this, and if you ever had to do this for a film, if you can tell me something about that.
Yeah, deaf animals are done most of the time by makeup and prosthetics. That's a bit another job. We have to work with them, but it depends what kind of dead animal you need. If they are just like dead dogs or cats, you could find some good stuff in the shops, and they are just artificial animals. And with the patina and some blood or whatever, you make this work for camera. But if you need a real dead animal for a close-up, it's not that easy. To be honest, it happens sometimes to me, and I went to see people who are how is this called? People who
taxidermy
stuff, taxidermists, and it's easier to find them in France than in Germany. In France, I knew one. He had big fridges full of dead animals, which he got from the airport, because people were coming back from countries, and they had all these dead animals in their suitcases, so they find it in the airport. He takes them, and if somebody wants a dead parrot, you can find it there in his fridge. more questions.
I think right next.
So I'm wondering, like, for a lot of the props you did, how much were they like already described in the script? Like, how much imagination you can have, like, beyond the script, and if so, like, how do you match the style of the film and working with the director, of the extra details that you can add on to the design?
It depends of the script, it depends of the director, but quite often you can't see all the props they will need in the script. It's really a discussion mostly with the production designer and the prop master, and the director for sure, that they want this stuff or this stuff. Sometimes you have a script, you have 10 lines of a special prop for how it looks, what it does. But most of the time it comes after the script. Or it comes a bit before shooting, sometimes too late. But it's a bit even with the sets. You can't see everything in the script. You need to. They give me a script, and I say, "Where's work for me in that?" And then they tell you, "But we were thinking about this prop, or this, or they show you something. They Google a lot, and they say, "Can you do this?" And then I say it's possible or not. I don't know if this replies to your question.
Another question, right down here in red. You can toss it back here to Henry.
How does development, and I mean really fast development of digital and virtual special effects affects your work? For example, do you have the feeling that you got less opportunities because the production decides more to build things 3D? And what would be your arguments for analog solutions?
Yeah, that's a very good question, because I don't know, 20 years ago I said to myself, with all these digital stuff arriving, okay, I don't do any miniature sets anymore, because digitally it's easier. And then for prop making, okay, you can give an actor just a plastic object in this hand, then they change it digitally. But it's still a difference to having a good-looking real object and play with than everything digital. Sometimes, you know, when you watch these, I don't know, all these Marvel films where they shoot everything against green screen, there's something missing for me personally. Okay, I was trained with Wes Anderson. He makes some props like a book. You never see the inside of the pages, but there is something written on those pages or pictures. The audience doesn't know it, but we have to. But he's very extreme. Yeah, but it's sure that there's also sometimes the reflex during shooting. You have a prop or a set, and there's no time, and they say, okay, let's just shoot it like that, and we fix it in post. How we say, we fix it later digitally, but or for money reasons they say, no, don't let's do a prop. We will make it digitally, but in the end, it's the same amount of money or time to build it digitally than by hand.
Again, passing the microphone over here, down the row.
Hello, yes, that was really impressive and great
Thank you.
view behind the curtain, or how to say. Could you say, for example, take Tim Burton. It's written that Tim Burton is keen on procs and that he drives to London and he said they build the best trees which are moving or whatever as an original proc. Could you say which directors are keen on procs and or other directors are more tending to digital, as the lady said before?
Yeah, it's difficult. Tim Burton is a good example. I think he's very, very keen. But it's not only the directors. It's also, I would say, production designers and all the crew with the art directors, the prop masters, set decorations. It's not only the director. I felt sometimes that I have no special example, but you can have a director who doesn't care about prop making, but then the production designer says, but this is very important, and it's very important for your film. You should do more props or more research on those things which you see on the big screen, and not only the actor. But Tim Burton is a good example, but this would be the last one I would like to work with.
Because he's too crazy over it.
Yeah.
Another question? Over here?
I was just going to ask if you could talk a little bit more about your relationship with the production designer and the art department in general, because, as props being a separate department, but obviously there's a lot of crossover. And so when you're building or designing, do you have to run a lot of those designs by the production designer, or does that sort of exist separately and you go right to the director, or some combination?
In every case, on every production, it's different. If you have a small production with less people, you have more direct contact. In those huge films, when you have in the art department you have 50, 80, 100 people, it's more complicated, and you have a chain of command which is difficult. If in my position, if I can now go and see directly the production designer, but sometimes some people can't. They have to go through all these assistants, and I think that in the end we have the production designer, and in the end it's the director who has to decide if this is what he wants or not. Talking about small films where some French productions or German productions I did with not a lot of people working on this film, they can be more complicated in relationship and what they want than the bigger productions. In bigger productions, you have all those very good art directors drawing plans and things for us, and you have to be ready to say, okay, I take this drawing, I build something, but it will change. It will change because it looks good on the drawing, it looks good now in 3D, you make a very nice 3D model of the prop on your computer, but when you build it as a volume, sometimes it works, but sometimes it's very disappointing. So that's a lot of different factors which go together, and you need to find your way through.
Just on that subject, are you sometimes building just a real simple mock-up? So you're building a simple mock-up to put into the hands of the team, and then is that helpful? That's a helpful step for you.
Yeah, that's very helpful. And it's quite often a conflict with production, because they say, oh no, don't lose too much time on mock-ups, because it will take 1 or 2 days of somebody. And I say, no, let's have a mock-up, because it will help you to see if it works. And every time, or sometimes I'm doing a model, because if we have to build a big prop, I say, let's do a model of this, and then we can see the camera position, if it works. And they say, no, don't lose time with that. We have everything in 3D. And after, I insist, and sometimes I I do the mock-up in secret. And I show it to them, and then every time they say, thank you, that was helpful.
So both saving time and money, potentially, in the end, yeah?
Potentially, yeah.
Well, you got maybe one more question, and then we can let this go early so you can personally meet the man. Over here. Hand up so we can see you there in the dark. Great.
Have you been using 3D printers more recently? And if so, do you enjoy using 3D printing, or do you prefer to make something from scratch with other materials?
Both. I'm using 3D printers, but personally for me, it's a very good tool, but it's just a tool. It's another tool. It's a new tool. Some people tend to think it's the solution of everything. You can do fantastic stuff with it, but sometimes you need somebody to draw the thing. Then it has to work on your printer. There are so many different files and softwares, so until it gets to the point that you can really print it, it's okay. Then it prints the whole night or the whole weekend, and then you still have your piece. You have to sand it to make it beautiful. So it's good for some stuff, but yeah, it's a tool for me, and you need to use it for the good purpose. But it's the same as a good saw or paper.
Okay, one last question. Anyone?
There was one over there.
Over there? Okay, great.
Oh, yeah.
Hand up high. Yeah.
Okay, hi. I wanted to ask you about your work space or the way you worked and about your crew.
Yeah, it's a good question, because sometimes I'm on my own on very small stuff like these TV series. Or I have a workshop here in Neukölln which I share with 3 other people. It's not very big, but because when you are not working, you have to pay the rent and everything. However, for bigger productions, we set up a big workshop in the studio the last years, most of the time in Babelsberg. So we take all our stuff and we put this together in a big space. But the crew can depend from me alone to 40 people. Yeah, it's very different. And I have a lot of people. They're good friends now, and they are skilled in various works. Like there's one more in really miniatures, model making. Then a carpenter, he's very good. And then you have those painters who know how to work, how to make a good patina on props and miniatures. They're very specialized. So I take all these skills together. And it's a bit different from America or England, because my crew, we are doing a bit of everything. We are building, mold making, casting, we are welding with steel. And in America and England, you will have people, they only weld, or they only paint, or they do nothing else. That's their specialty. Here we haven't got those big productions, so we are doing, as I said, a bit of everything.
Great. Well, just thank you again for your time. Oh, yeah. One more thing.
Just thing. I like to show this kind of work we're doing, because, as somebody said, the behind the scenes are not really shown. You always see the actors, the directors, and I'm not really a kind of speaker, but it's my pleasure to see that people are interested in our work. And I wanted to thank Berlinale Talents again, and thank you for coming.
Thank you.